Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Two in the Cooler. Here we go again. Thank you guys for watching, subscribing, following us on Instagram, and all that good stuff. If you want to support the show even more, the best way to do that is actually do something a little nice for yourself and go check out the merch. The link for that is going to be in this episode description or in our bio on Instagram. Check it out. We've got hoodies, t-shirts, pint glasses, fanny packs, bucket hats, whatever you want, we got it. Okay, not just merch for this show, but also merch for Schemin' and Dreamin', the other show that we produce right here with Jake and Ben, which if you haven't listened to is spectacular. So go check all that out at snackspot.se/creator/teespring.com. Again, the link is going to be in the episode description and in our Instagram bio. And this is quality merchandise, folks, okay? I would not try and skimp out on you in this instance, all right? Because I hate when you order shirts from, places or different podcasts, whatever, and it's that really cheap brand, and it fits like a cardboard box, and you feel terrible wearing it. Maybe you put it on once, but then you just throw it to the side and it sits in your closet for decades until you get rid of it. At least that's my experience. But you're not going to have that with this, because I'm talking tri-blend quality materials on this stuff, folks. Okay, so again, do yourself a favor and check it out at snackspot.se/creator/teespring.com. The WWE SmackDown watch parties are back, folks. Next Friday, April 22nd at 8 p.m., we are going to be live on Twitch at the handle snackspot_SE with Ben and Jake from Schemin' and Dreamin'. The belt is up for grabs. Whoever makes the funniest joke on the stream gets to wear the belt. Not only that, we've also got the wheel now. People got to spin the wheel, take a shot of hot sauce, buy a star, cry. Shave your armpits, which I don't know if Ben has actually done that yet, but we're going to get him to do it if he hasn't. So be sure to join us on Twitch at 8 p.m. next Friday, April 22nd. The handle is going to be snackspot_SE. The letter snack, the word snack, the word spot, underscore, letter S, letter E. The link for that is going to be in our Instagram bio. Check it out, folks. We'll see you there. We've all had that moment, folks. You finally pull into the driveway and you realize you forgot that one necessary item at the store. What are you going to do? Turn around? Go back? No, forget all that. You don't need to do it. You can just use Instacart, because with Instacart you can get not just groceries, but some of your favorite products from some of your favorite local stores delivered right to your front door in as little as 1 hour. And the best part is, right now, Two in the Cooler listeners get free delivery on their first order of $10 or more. All you got to do is spend $10 and Instacart will drop it off at your house free of delivery charge, folks, okay? Don't bother going to a grocery store. It's a mess there. I was there yesterday, and this guy almost ran his cart into me. Didn't even look up. It's the monkey cage. I mean, it's the place where society is collapsing inside the grocery store. Avoid that big headache and just start using Instacart today. And like I said, Two in the Cooler listeners get free delivery on their first order of $10 or more. Just hit the link in this episode description. Get yourself that deal going. Make life a little easier on yourself and start using Instacart today. And if you're interested in advertising on this show or our twin show, Schemin' and Dreamin', email snackspotsports@gmail.com for details on how you can start reaching thousands of listeners in the Buffalo area and beyond. Because, folks, it's no secret that podcasting has really boomed in the last couple of years. And with that, it's attracted a lot of big advertisers. State Farm, Tropicana, McDonald's, like advertising on podcasts. That's the craziest shit I've ever heard. The reason that it upsets me is because it leaves no room for smaller or local companies to get in on the action. Well, that's where we come in. There's a lot of benefits to podcast advertising. Why else would those big companies start dipping their toes in the water? So if you want to learn more about all the benefits of podcast advertising, again, reach out to us at snackspotsports@gmail.com.
Oh, we're going. Logos are off.
Oh, all right. Here we go. Yeah, nobody's got two phones. Everybody's got one phone, and everything's completely on the up and up. Everybody's cool.
Yeah. We're not doing a weed podcast at all.
We're not doing a weed podcast. No. Well, I mean...
Well, we are doing a weed podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
And it seems like there's nothing wrong with that. Like, didn't just the other day there was something about it becoming federally legal, like a blanket thing.
There is talk about that. But the thing is that that's also happened last year, and it seems to happen every year to 2 years. I don't think that'll happen right away. It seems like they really try to push this right before election seasons. So I think that if anything, we're going to see that actual final push come right before the next big election. But there's always hope. You know, Chuck Schumer is the guy running the Senate version of the bill that got passed in the House. So if he can come up with something that both parties can agree and then has to go back and get reapproved, then we might see something sooner. But I really think that what we'll see before that is some sort of banking regulation, something really boring that nobody's really going to see on the shelves anytime soon, but it's going to be the first step in moving things in that direction.
A banking regulation.
Yeah, in order for people to actually be able to pay using credit cards as opposed to cash, because even in Colorado, California, anywhere else that's state legal, they still can't use the banking systems at all.
Really?
Yep. So they literally bring truckloads of cash to their city or county clerk's office to pay their taxes every quarter or whatever it is.
Just like duffel bags full of cash.
Brink trucks. Brinks as a company was going to go out of business before Colorado legalized.
Holy shit. I have heard stories about that, actually, about how businesses have to hire like these crazy security companies for that reason, because they're carrying all of that cash. Wow. I did not realize that. Huh.
That it's still going on like that. You would think, like, we have like I don't know. I mean, MedMen here in New York State still, I don't know how, because they're medical cannabis dispensary and whatever else. I don't know how they technically pay their taxes to New York State, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be through a credit card or a banking wire.
So the company themselves, like Colorado, for example, or this company that you're talking about, MedMen, so they can't even, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but are they not even allowed to open, business accounts for themselves through banking systems?
They can, and I mean, there's different ways to still be able to find loopholes, even though lawyers won't love you calling that. It's a regulatory oversight in a sense. But they'll make like shell companies, which are what's called a holding company. So it's the same way that they don't actually touch the plant. They just own a real estate company that owns these subsidiaries.
Yeah, so then they can use, the banking system to their advantage as opposed to.
So that's how they would. So the cash from the business would go into the account for that company, that holding company. Interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, some of those stocks are still. Some of those companies are still traded publicly on the stock market and that kind of thing. So there is still ways, and there still are banks that are taking those risks, but the big ones that aren't like credit unions or things like that won't do it still.
And why do you think they won't touch it? Because they think there's still that kind of aura around it,
or is it illegal for them to touch it, or is it just?
It's federally illegal. That's the thing. Is that
got it.
The plant's still federally, and that's why we have a lot of issues with people that come into. We have a retail shop in Batavia called Glassroots, and we've been selling Delta 8 THC products, which are hemp derived which is what is in Buffalo Buds, since 2019. We've been providing the public with Delta 8 products, and what we've found is that we still have a number of people that have what's called CDL licenses for trucking, or if they are federal employees, whether they work for different bureaus within the federal government, they still get tested, and cannabis still is not okay for them to be in their system, right? And we also find that people don't want to be on the medical program in New York State, because if you hold a medical license in New York State and you apply for a gun permit, for example, it's a federal application, and there's a conflict there because the state sees it as a medicine, the federal government sees it as a drug. So on the questionnaire that asks if you use illicit drugs, you have to still say yes, because you're still approving cannabis.
Yeah.
Because it's a federal
I actually did know that, for whatever reason, that you can't get a concealed carry permit for your pistol if you have a medical marijuana license.
Yeah.
I don't know why that. But I think the whole thing, and I want to get into more, I guess, then towards the Buffalo Buds, But I personally find the whole, like, rules and regulation side of it, I guess, super, super interesting because it seems to be ever evolving, and I feel like nobody knows what truly stands. And, like, Delta 8 is something that has gotten super, super popular over, like, the last probably 2 years, like you said.
Could you explain what that is just real quick? Because I feel like some people still won't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's confusing because at the end of the day, THC is THC. And when people used to talk about the plant, it was all about how strong it was, right? And that would have been the balance between CBD and THC within it. And now we are learning more about that. It's not just one form of THC into the plant. There is several, almost like 15 to 20 different forms of just THC. The most prevalent and the one that everyone knows is Delta 9. The second most prevalent is Delta 8, which also is showing up in hemp, and that's where a lot of Delta 8 that's provided in Delta 8 products is derived from.
So it's like there's a minuscule difference between the two, though, right?
Yeah, chemically there's a very minuscule difference. It's still created naturally in terms of, like, it's still a naturally found product. A lot of times now, especially with how saturated the market's become and how many companies there are out there doing Delta 8 products, there are labs that are just synthetically making THCs. But once again, I mean, a lot of that really comes down to sourcing and just knowing where your products are created and how they're created.
And where they're coming from. And
exactly.
I don't know if I'm maybe preaching to the choir when I say this, but why is that federally legal but Delta 9 is not?
It's honestly, it's what's called a regulatory oversight. It's the same thing I was saying.
Yeah. That's what I didn't know.
Regulatory.
Textbook regulatory oversight.
Spelled L-O-O-P.
Well, because they always say
regulatory oversight.
I feel like when you hear, like, ads and stuff, they always say the, like, non-psychoactive. I feel like that's the word they always use when they talk about.
Well, that's CBD, but Delta 8 is psychoactive
for sure.
Oh.
Yeah, CBD.
Maybe I just
has
don't
been
psychoactive. That just means it, like, gets you high.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I feel like maybe that's what they say is it is psychoactive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to listen better. Yeah.
Are you psychoactive right now?
Yeah, I know. But
we could change that.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I just think that there's so much. And I think it's such a split thing too. Like, I think everybody, and I also think age has a big thing to do with it. I think everybody under the age of, like, 40. At this point is like, yeah, like, is legal, going to be legal, should be legal, it is what it is, whatever. Like, whereas I feel like everybody that, like, grew up and was alive through, like, the 70s and 80s is still like, whoa, like.
There's a big split for sure. I mean, there are people that won't even want to walk into a head shop to get incense because they won't want to be seen walking in or out. And if, I understand certain scenarios where if you're working in a conservative town and you're a teacher or something of that sort and you don't want to be seen in that environment, but the other side of them have always been like the flower children hippies that have just been smoking for forever.
Yeah, since they were 13 years old.
And the funny part to me is them not being able to keep up or identify what the hell is going on in the industry right now, which I can understand in a lot of ways because, I mean, it's the same thing happens with alcohol or any other thing where the tried and tested products have been out there forever, and then there's always some new spin on what's going on, and half of it is marketing garbage, and the other half is something actually significant and worth time in a sense. But there are so many new products, and even for example, in Buffalo Buds we stuck with Delta 8 THC, and there's been a number of other THCs that have come out that are also either synthetically or naturally derived or extracted. And a lot of those haven't been around nearly as long as Delta 8 has been in terms of actual use and everything else. Because, for example, in the cartridges that people knew and loved back in the early 2010 or 2008 when, like, Colorado and California first legalized and cartridges first started coming on the scene, before the whole like cartridge scare and people starting to cut and use odd chemicals and things in them, what people found was that the amber kind of darker color that was in those cartridges was actually from the level of extraction not being good enough. It's not as clean as what we'd be able to find these days, where it's like that golden, almost clear color.
Right.
And the reason being is that there was a mix of Delta 8 and Delta 9 in those cartridges. So people have actually been consuming Delta 8 in addition to Delta 9 for a long time in extracted products for like wax, what people call dabs, vape pens, things like that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was, and I want to start talking more about, the Buffalo Bud side of things, and maybe, get Andrew to sample some product here for us. But I had this thought, the second we sat down, because I remember when, I was in college when everybody and like, was always smoking like the cartridges, and then it came out like, oh, like those are horrible for you. People are doing, like they're not coming from where people think they're coming from, right? Like they're, have whatever branding on them, but they're not real. People are just mixing them up and blah, 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 putting chemicals in them. And so is that something now too that a lot of people have been striving to like flip? Like, hey, if you get them from the right places and from people and companies and businesses who are actually, making them and whatnot, like these are, the way to go. Don't buy them from somebody, but just do your research and know where you're getting this stuff from, and it's not, you're not going to end up like the people that were smoking the ones that had whatever chemicals mixed in with them.
Right. I mean, what's odd to me, and I didn't really think about it until I started running into it more and more often, is that for myself and for a lot of the people that I kind of have surrounded myself, because a lot of them are in the same industry in a sense too, and so they've always been striving for the best and looking for the best quality and everything else, but a lot of everyday consumers never really had any options. Their options in a New York State market were take it or leave it. They didn't have 12 different strains on the shelves. They didn't have an ability to look at like a lab report and see whether there was lead or mold or anything else in their flour. And so there was we were at a restaurant maybe a month or two back actually, and the waitress was so excited. She was telling me about this dispensary that opened up on the reservations near the restaurant that she had visited, and she was just mind blown by all the stuff that they had there and everything else. And I just asked her, I was like, well, was anything like properly labeled? Did it have a lab result? Did you know whether like was it actually tested ever for like mold, mildew, parasites? Like there's pesticides, there's so many things that could go wrong or can make it not clean. It could be hemp sprayed with Delta 8 or Delta 9 distillate and just served as that too. And her response to that was that, well, I've never known what I've been smoking anyway, so why should I care now? And that just blew me away, because I mean, from one aspect, I understand the accessibility side of things and making sure that, like not everyone can afford to pay $55 for an eighth at the end of the day. But even if they want to buy the cheaper product, they should still care about what's going into their lungs, into their bodies in general. And that's the biggest issue right now with this new Wild West market, is that you can buy the packaging that we see in a lot of places for like Cheetos and Skittles or whatever else on online websites, fill them with whatever you have, and off they go, and there's no regulation of that. And that can cause some people to get like food poisoning and get sick, and that has happened. But on the larger scale, I mean, I think it's up until some sort of unfortunate event happens that they're actually going to crack down on these types of things. And I mean, we've seen different councils kind of start that, because like the Seneca Nation has cracked down on the children geared packaging and things like that, but it's still the Wild West out there with all these shops that are just selling whatever they can find.
Interesting. Well, I think that for one thing, it does seem to me though that the education about these products is relatively spreading pretty fast for people who are starting to try it now that it's like legal in this state and stuff. And I do think that when folks go into a place, for the first time, where they do get to they really are talking to somebody who knows the product and like can be trusted and has all that information, that's gonna blow them away, and they're always gonna go back to a place like that as opposed to going to a place that might sell this stuff, but it's still basically like you're just buying it from some guy.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, though, like you said, for people to start cracking down, something bad would have to happen, and I think that what is the word? Demonized, I guess. The drug is still so demonized, or the plant, whatever, that when something like that happens, I think there's legitimate concern that people are going to get up in arms way too quickly, and for a solution, be like, hey, don't you see we tried this, and like this is what happened, blah, blah, blah.
I think that that's a definite voice within the opposition and people that would be outraged, and rightfully so outraged. I think that a lot of that also falls on the arms of the state because of how they rolled out legalization in this state in particular, without having any sort of regulatory board, commission, and especially when Cuomo was in office, they didn't have a cannabis committee for up until Hochul came in. So what that caused was a lot of lag in between, where there was this gray area where people didn't know what was okay and how it was okay to operate. And so, you know, obviously you have cowboys that are going to go out and take advantage of that situation, and in a way they're right, because the laws are written after the culture, right? And so if the culture is accepted in a certain way and they like a certain type of marketplace dynamic, that's going to get adopted into the legislation. And that's what I think we're hoping for, and that's what happened on the reservations in a lot of ways. You know, I mean, they passed their own laws and then they started operating in their own manner, and the state came in and said, okay, well, they're sovereign, and since we legalized, they are allowed to do it as such, you know. And so they're kind of more so leading the way, almost more than the state is, in a sense, which is interesting to see. But, you know, I do think that the demonization of it is kind of, it's coming in phases, because the plant is something that is almost fairly, I see it as being more widely accepted than it ever has, even if it does have a little bit of, like, it still does have people against it.
Sure, there's always, folks like that.
Right. But I feel like now, hold on, train of thought, that was somewhere there. I feel like now with legalization, there's more opportunity for companies to come out and take bold risks. And, you know, there was a local sticker shop that has several locations and sells flour everywhere that went and donated, or wanted to donate, upwards of $40,000 in school supplies to a local school. And the district actually turned them away, because where the funds come from is still not necessarily illicit, like explicitly, but it's gray area, and they just can't be associated with it at the moment, you know, as a school, even though it's supplies, you know, it's just stuff for the kids. But
right,
that is where, I mean, I think we're going to run into some speed bumps and along the way, but overall it's been actually pretty smooth. I mean, we haven't heard about any sort of, I mean, almost a year of this type of operation, we haven't heard any type of bad news coming out. We haven't heard any type of huge raids or massive illegal operations and things like that. And I think that's because this industry is mainly full of people that are genuinely caring about who they're serving for the most part, you know. There's a lot of people looking to just make a quick buck, but even then, I feel like the person who's actually working the counter at the end of the day still always has the best interest of the customer in mind.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen that before too, because I've gone into, you know, a dispensary in like a different state or in Canada with a couple of my buddies. I've never like used anything that they've gotten, but it's fascinating to me. Like, going back to what you're saying too, like, options, like the amount of information that they have about it. I feel like it's one of the, like, there's people that are super passionate about it, right? And I feel like those are the people that kind of end up getting into that stuff, and so they try to actually listen to, like, okay, what are you, like, why do you want it? What are you planning on, using it, doing, or what, blah, 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 and can lead you in the right direction because they know. And that's, I don't know, I think that's cool. I think there's just so much that people don't know about it. Going back to what you were saying, like, up until this point, it's always been, you get whatever somebody has, right?
Right.
And now you have the opportunity to pick and choose, and people are like, well, I don't know what this means. I don't know what these names are,
Yeah, it makes it. I mean, when you treat it professionally, then it becomes more professional in people's minds, right? It becomes like if they had any preconceived notions or stigmas about it, it becomes a legitimate thing in their mind.
And if presented correctly, too, this industry is going to change a lot of other consumable industries, too, because it's coming out it's coming out much later in the game than a lot of these other items, such as alcohol, food, anything else. I mean, for example, the weed you're buying at a dispensary in a legal state that actually gets lab tested and everything else is far cleaner than the blueberries you're buying at any grocery store near here. I mean, no consumable product that we buy actually gets tested for mold, for pesticides, and has a report that comes with it and says, here's what's in your steak, here's what's in, whatever. And, maybe that trend will kind of push more transparency in other industries, but it's just something interesting to think about, that, like, this was the first place that we started in having this complete transparency in the network in terms of, like, which farm this was raised in from seed to sale, in terms of, that kind of
and
thing.
the way we track, like,
that's
what we
very
consume.
Interesting.
Yeah,
because I feel like whoever that would stem from originally, maybe I'm getting a little too devious here, but somebody in the background's like, let's make it super hard for them. They'll have to do all this all these hoops they have to jump through, and it'll never work.
For sure. I
But-
mean, that's part of it.
yeah.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, those that once again, like, those that write the regulations, right, they want to make sure that that the market seems as inclusive as possible without actually being inclusive. And that means that for you to make money, you have to have money to make money, in a sense, right? Just like in any other industry. And they want to create these barriers of entry so that those without the pocketbook, like the small businesses, won't be able to essentially compete. And that's what a lot of the bigger concerns with legalization in cannabis is in any state.
Yeah, because that's a lot of times what will happen, right, is just big corporations will come in and they'll start, they can franchise things pretty easily. So if they try and open up some, like, series of shops, then, they want to make, like, the KFC or whatever of weed products and stuff like that.
But it makes me curious, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about, the people who are the ones behind the counter are, not.
Yeah, that's one of the...
So
yeah.
I wonder if, and I don't know the answer to this, I don't know if you've ever put any thought into it, but because of, and, again, down the road, it should be seen as a good thing that everything that we consume should have to go through. But the way Andrew put it is probably the way that it was designed is, they want to make people have to jump through all these hoops, because that's just their thought process behind it. Like, make it more difficult than it needs to be. When in reality, it's only going to help it. Now, do you think that big companies are going to look at this and say, well, I already own 20, whatever, we'll use KFC as an example. Like, we already own KFC. None of the stuff that we do needs to get regulated. We don't want to have to start putting the money in to getting all of this other stuff regulated when we don't have to do it here, so it's not even worth it, even though we know that we could make money doing it.
Are you saying, like, if big business comes in, some of those good things will actually be repealed in a way?
I'm saying that because they're there, I don't know, will big business want to have to go through them?
There maybe, but I don't think there is any really, like, KFC, McDonald's equivalent in this industry right now. Would I be correct in that?
There are some that try, but I mean, that's actually one of the amazing things about this plant in general, is that growing on a large scale starts starts building up the overheads. So like the cost of growing in a massive warehouse because of the chance of not infection, but essentially infection in terms of like bugs, parasites, things like that, diseases for plants, all the way up to just environmental issues, like.
And the money that it would cost to run a warehouse of that size, right?
It's just one of the things that I worked at a hemp operation that was massive last year, and they wanted to scale up so quickly, and the cost of the machinery that they would have to do, because they started in the beginning just wanting to grow seedlings and clones to be able to sell those to farmers to plant in the fields. Once they started building up this inventory, they quickly realized that they didn't have the this is when I came on, they didn't have the sales to match what they had sitting on the shelves in plants, which as every week goes by, they get bigger, they need more water, the amount of cost input into them only goes up. And so within a month or so, we did what we could. There really wasn't as much to sell as possible, so they shifted and said, okay, we're going to plant all of these plants and create our own fields. And from there, you need different machinery to plant. And then after you're done planting, that's only maybe a quarter or a fifth of the work. Really, a lot of it comes down to once you have to harvest everything, dry it, trim it, package it, like cure it, and then package it. So unfortunately, I mean, this is something where I was contracting out with them for a while, and they just wouldn't listen because they just got themselves in a little bit too deep. But by the end of it, they just had a full field and a full warehouse of hemp that they left. They just didn't do anything with because it was just not salvageable. The amount of labor they would have had to put into it would have outgrown the cost per pound that they would have been able to sell it for. It was an absolute shit show.
So that kind of answered my question, though.
Yeah.
Like that got exactly to what I was saying is, if people think that they can come in and do that, like it's
good luck.
Exactly.
Right.
It's more.
Okay.
It's more.
The
it's more
business
intensive.
really,
Exactly.
right, lends
You can't-
itself to
Exactly. Like it
being
can't.
smaller.
Yeah, it
You
does.
can't
Interesting.
run it like you can a lot of businesses.
Right.
Or like there's a lot of businesses that and they go. You have to spend money to make money. That's
Sure.
whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about something, and I'm going to bring it again back to fast food, where there's not as much, it's not. I don't want to use the word regulated, but you're almost not taking as good of care of what your end product is going to be as you have to with something
Sure.
like that. So you have to put more money in. Whereas the way that big businesses work now is find any way possible to cut costs, especially once you already have a following, because people aren't just going to stop doing it, right? Like
Exactly.
McDonald's wants to be able to make their food as cheap as possible and still
So
sell
they
it for
can
the
make it
same
as quick
price
as possible.
so they can make, but also because it doesn't cost them more money, they can just continue. They can actually make more money without having to raise prices. They're not necessarily as concerned about the quality because, as delicious as McDonald's is, sometimes people aren't going there for the quality of the food.
Yep.
Right. That's not the
convenience.
model of it. Whereas, when it comes to like marijuana and weed and growing these plants and stuff like that, quality is eventually going to be the name of the game, right? Especially with the way that it has to be tested and go through all of these hoops just to be able to get put on a shelf so that everybody knows exactly what they're using and what is going into their body. Whereas McDonald's would never ever start stapling a piece of paper to every single one of their cheeseburgers of every single thing that's in that cheeseburger. They wouldn't do it. Not only would it not be worth it because it would cost them more money, but people would probably stop eating there.
Yeah, and I mean that's why you don't see a single nutritional fact, whatever table on any alcohol beverage that you get. It's
right.
Which I think is one thing that New York State changed, though. They do have to put it on the case now, do they not? I think when you
Oh,
buy
really?
a case of beer, they have like nutritional facts.
Interesting.
It's all words we don't know, though. All right, Andy, start sampling some damn product, will you?
Okay, yeah.
let's get started then.
Yeah.
Do you usually take the lighter or the stronger gummies?
The lighter ones for
Okay,
sure.
so the stronger ones to start. No,
Yeah. So have you
it's
used
actually a brand new pack.
these ones before, Andy?
Yeah, there's a place down the road called Sativa Remedy. Shout out to them. And I went in there one day, and woman, but they were super nice. And the woman behind the counter was like, "You should try these," and they're phenomenal. I had them in my drawer.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate Sativa Remedy. They're the top hemp dispensary in Western New York. Really doing everything right to gear up for legalization without jumping ahead of themselves and kind of doing this whole cowboy thing that the rest of the like gas station sticker shops are trying to do. And their attention to detail and quality was something that drew me to them in the first place, in terms of like every product that they have on their shelf, they do have like the lab results and the background, and they know who has it and where it's from. And they actually teamed up with Zach Sarkis out of Rochester to make the Flower City Cup, which is like almost like High Times, like their like weed competition, where they all the farmers send in their flower. They have a series of judges that get sample packs of anonymous flower. They test it all out. Okay. They grade it by touch, by smell, feel, taste, high, and everything. And
I'm sure it's tough to find people to sit on that panel.
Oh yeah. Those judges are just one in a million.
So what's the story behind Buffalo Buds then?
So my background was actually in distribution. I have another company called Ground Level Distribution that supplies the smoke shops that are in Buffalo. And before COVID, life was different, and I used to do trade shows quite often. I would go to one almost every month, every 2 months, depending. And so life on the road was pretty fun, and one of the things that we would find is the trade shows, you would see the newest products out there. And so the second that Delta 8 came onto the scene in October of 2019, we were at a trade show in Chicago, and that's when we ran into Delta 8 products through a company called 3Chi, which is the brand that we supply in our shops and through our distribution network. And they were so fresh on the scene that they were the first ones to really hone in on developing the quality Delta 8 distillate that wasn't bullshit at the end of the day. I mean, there was a lot of other labs and companies that were saying, hey, we're doing it too. You'd get a sample, or you'd buy a sample and send it into a third-party laboratory, and it'd come back as nothing, like 40%, if anything. So their main issue was actually supply. They were spot on with being able to supply the cartridges and everything else, but when it came to creating the gummies, they were inconsistent, and then they weren't able to keep up with some of the volumes that we were needing, really. And so when we first started working together, I brought them some new varieties of distillates that they could work with, and we ended up partnering up on the side to be able to actually source some of their high quality distillate to make our own products. And at that point, I teamed up with a local company called Bison Botanicals, and they are what's called CGMP licensed. So that's Certified Good Manufacturing Practices, which means that they have the ability to produce food grade products for consumers. You know, it's not like me cooking up a batch in my kitchen or something like that, right? So this is an actual licensed hemp manufacturer. So we worked together on actually creating the recipe and the formulation for the gummies, and once we started rolling those out, we started seeing the reaction. And I mean, I have family members that have never smoked in their lives that take these gummies for sleep, you know. Yeah. And it's really interesting to me because it's mainly the people that don't smoke as often or as consistently that find better results with Delta 8. A lot of times Delta 8 is a little bit milder than Delta 9, so has less anxiety, less paranoia, but it still helps with appetite, sleep, pain, stress, the same classics, right? So we found a lot more consistency in the Delta 8 products than Delta 9, especially for novice users.
As far as consistency, as far as people continuing to take them, or in effect?
In effect.
Gotcha.
Knowing that a half or a full gummy will get you to a certain place without pushing it too far over the edge or back and forth.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, even when people make homemade brownies or whatever else, if they don't really mix that mix all the way, you end up with a puddle of butter on one end, and then that person who gets that, it's like a
You have no idea what every bite's going to be, which
Yeah.
is one of the things that I do love about the gummies in general. And gummies do seem to be the new way for people into hemp and those related products.
Gummies are a weird phenomenon because the what is it? I think the FDA license says that basically a nutraceutical, which is what like any nutritional supplement is, vitamins included, that gummies don't count as being like a pill in a sense.
Okay.
And so even in other industries, so like vitamins, for example, they sell way more gummy vitamins than they do pill vitamins or capsule vitamins, you know? And the only thing that I have to say to that is convenience. There's actually a surprising amount of people that can't take pills or have a difficulty swallowing pills, things like that. And that's where I think gummies come in handy. Plus, they're just more palatable. They're fun.
Everybody loves
Exactly.
gummies.
Right.
Yeah, I take vitamin gummies every single day in gummy form, just out of choice. I used to take.
Even
pills.
those don't technically count as nutraceuticals.
Yeah.
Really?
Huh.
That's very interesting. Because when I take vitamins, it's gummy all the way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. I remember, like you mentioned 3Chi. Like I remember sitting there one day and saying to Andrew, like, you know, I heard about this thing on this podcast I listened to. Like they've been talking about it all the time. Like it's federally legal. Like you should try it because you could only get them online at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you still can. And I'm pretty sure you ordered them, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, you know, was like, I mean, I've never used it, Delta 8, but I heard about it on a podcast, and the first person I thought of was Andy, and then he got him, and I asked him, and he's like, yeah, they work. They're enjoyable to use. So
It's wild. When they first started, it was a couple that owned that company, and within a year they became part of a board. They had like larger investors. They already went through a Series A. And that's, you know, how they were able to get. That's a lot of the things is that money aspect. To be able to have the traction, you have to be able to get the advertising and really get your name out there, and that definitely takes a nice checkbook to be able to do. And they had the product to back it. That's the main thing, you know, is that they had the quality and the variety, and they were the first on the market with that.
So then back into Buffalo Bud. So you said it was Bison. What was the name of the?
Bison Botanicals.
Bison Botanicals. So when you guys first started making these, were they being made here in Buffalo?
They still are.
They still are being made here in Buffalo.
Right down the street on Military.
Okay, so see, and that's what I'm glad we got back to this too, because that's what I mean earlier. Like you're talking about knowing where something is made that you're getting and putting in your body. Like you're buying this, it's being made down the street from where we're sitting.
Exactly. And I mean that's and the store that you had gone to is probably it's 5-10 minute walk from here.
Oh yeah. It's super close. I was very excited to find it because we were our cousin was getting married here, and I didn't bring anything. I forgot to bring any gummies or anything from Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh shit, I need to find a place quick. Went down there, and the woman who was working there was like, you got to try these out. So yeah, I had them in my drawer, and they're I really like 3Chi a lot. These are these are different though. I want to say, I don't know if like more potent is the right term, but they feel more potent.
You want to know a little secret? They are a little bit more potent than what is advertised.
Okay.
By maybe between 5 to 10 milligrams even.
Really?
So on average, I'd say that they're almost about 30 to 32 milligrams.
Wow.
But because of how the batches average out in terms of, let's say they all average out at about 27.5 to 28, I would have still rather advertised it at 25 milligrams than at 30.
Oh, of course.
You know, I mean, the average rule of thumb in the industry is to round up, you know, and say like, oh, it's 26, count as 30, you know, and I'd prefer to have it a little bit on the lower side, and people will be able to take less, and that way it's
right
still
over deliver. Yeah, that is that is a good, like, a batch of those. If you don't take them too often, will last you a good amount of time, and like they'll still get you to where you want to be.
If it doesn't, we have the alternative for people with a higher tolerance, and this is actually something I developed personally because I would take between 6 to 8 of those at a time. I mean, even now, like on average, so there's 100 milligrams per piece in these ones, and that would equate to about 4 of the standard ones. And I eat between 3 to 4 of these on an average night. The first time I got a batch of these, I took it home. I ate the whole thing to the face because I was like, you know what? If I do it, someone else is going to do it.
Yeah.
You know? And they're not going to do it because they thought they wanted to do it. They're going to do it by accident thinking that they were supposed to do it. You know, like something like that. So,
yeah. Because everybody's heard those
that's
stories.
Of
somebody getting a chocolate bar and they're like,
that's
oh,
the one, like a lot
bar.
of, now that it's becoming more widespread, like I've had a lot of people's parents like tell me those stories because they know that I'll use gummies or whatever, and they'd be like, yeah, we got a cookie from our son, and yeah, we took about half of it, and all my friends are from Chicago, so other parents. We took about half of it, and nothing happened. So then we ate the rest, and it was terrifying.
Yeah, not waiting is the biggest thing. I think the rule of thumb is for you to take your edible and then smoke your usual dose. So like if you smoke, you know, a bong or a joint or a bowl, whatever, just smoke what you usually would. At that point, by the time you get high and that high wears off, the edible high should be then kicking in.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's
fascinating to me. Like I would have never assumed that somebody would do that.
These are the tricks of the trade.
Yeah. Somebody eats it.
And the thing is that like every person is different, and when it comes to edibles, there's something completely different that happens in the body. And so when you eat an edible, it digests in your liver, and there has to be a particular enzyme that breaks down delta-9 THC into 11-hydroxy delta-9 THC. Doesn't matter. What matters is some people have a lot of this enzyme, some people have none of it. So some people can smoke all day, every day, and then they eat a little edible, and they get absolutely wrecked because they have a whole shit ton of this enzyme, and it creates this 11-hydroxy. And 11-hydroxy is 4 times more psychoactive than regular THC. And so those people get absolutely wrecked, even though they're like, hey, I smoke every day. I should have a high tolerance. I'm good to go, whatever else. On the other hand, I have met people and know some friends that don't smoke. They don't really, it's not for them, mainly because it doesn't do anything for them, right? And I'm like, no, there's no way it doesn't do anything for you, whatever else. And we've had them try 1,000 milligram of edibles. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They just don't have that enzyme, so their body doesn't break it down.
Wow.
That's one of the other fascinating things that I started to realize as I, explored this sort of thing more, is that I can't really think of any other product that your experience will be pretty different depending on how you actually take it.
For sure.
Which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, really, I hate comparing weed with alcohol because it's so different. Because even with a regular tolerance, I mean, I guess there are people that may never really drink much, but they can drink when they need to, that kind of thing, right? Versus the people that drink often, but they're still a 1 glass or 1 cup kind of person, and they get drunk after 1 drink. So it does still vary person to person, but weed is so different because the experience is so, like, not inconsistent, but different for each person. Whether you're smoking, I don't really like sativa or indica, but something more uplifting or sedative, whether you're looking at something that's meant to just put you straight to sleep, that those experiences can really, and how you smoke in general, whether you're smoking out of a bong or joint, some weird device on the table
some weird device sitting on a table. Yeah.
So why don't I show you guys this this little contraption? I can move this around a little.
Yeah,
bit.
here, if we pull it this way.
It might be a little.
Nice.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's all right.
So, this is called the Bello. And speaking of quality and sourcing, the cartridge that we're enjoying today is from a company called Gold Drip Laboratories. The products that's inside it is all what's called cured resin. So that's an extract that's derived straight from cured flower.
Okay.
So the minimal amount of extracts or what's it called, solvents, which basically means it's as clean as it really can be. Tested for pesticides and lab tested, third party. The strain is always determined by what's called terpenes. Terpenes are sourced either botanically, so from mint or orange or whatever else, or directly from the plant. So these are actually sourced directly from cannabis itself. And the strain on this is Sunday Jack. And the cartridge actually is made in Michigan, not in another country in a sense. So the way that this works, this is like a social vaping device. So what they call it is vaping on tap. Each person has a cup like this, and you just place your cup over the device, and when you push it down,
oh my god. So it's just filling up with vapor right now if people are just listening.
right.
Yeah, you can
Oh
see
my
it.
god.
Yeah.
And then you can just pick up the cup and
What a device.
That was so cool.
Yeah,
because the thing, because I'm looking at this and
yeah.
how to just it's like this weird looking cup. So I was like, okay, so you kind of will do it like a bong where you'd like put your mouth over it. You just drank it.
Yeah.
you
You just
tip
like
it up.
ooh, you just sip it a little bit.
A social device was the best word to describe that. Like, that is, you're hanging out with your buddies and you have just one of those things.
It's also perfect because you can just like set it down and then everybody's got. It's not like, oh hey, where's the pen? Like, can you pass it over here or whatever? It's like you.
Yeah,
Just,
throw it in the middle of the table.
but one of
Everyone has
the
their cup and they can just kind of go back to it.
when you
Never seen
just
anything
by
like
the
that.
arm. Let me try. So you were talking about how this came in handy so much during COVID.
Especially during events. I mean, we were doing events before COVID, but once COVID hit, the challenges for having like
Excuse me.
Yeah, all right.
right.
Keep going.
Yeah. No, I'm just here to oversee you, Andrew. I'm here to
We're here
oversee
for
you.
moral support.
Yep, moral support, guys. That thing is fascinating. I was so curious how that thing worked. I feel like there's a lot of people who don't know that exists that wish they did.
And for weddings, so you have like a bud bar or something
my
of
God,
that
yeah.
sort, I mean that would be it's and you can have so we had several of these set up with different strains.
Yeah.
So people could try like Pineapple Express. This one's called Sunday Jack. It's a hybrid.
Andy's crying over there. That'll get you. Where you go, Andy?
It's a strong one. But
It's been a long time.
this is where the show really starts.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do the Hood of the Week soon.
Ooh, I'm not gonna remember what it is.
Yeah, no, I remember. Hey, listen, that's what I'm here for. Hey, listen, Andy, you had to try it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's,
yeah,
what are the? Oh yeah, one of my favorite quotes, and it's awful, but at the same time, it's just fun. Is it's not peer pressure, it's just your turn.
yeah.
Which is obviously exactly what it is. So yeah, I've just found that oftentimes we're smoking in a circle and you start passing around a joint or a bowl or whatever else, and at some point somebody like, oh no, I'm good. Like, oh, it's not peer pressure, it's just your turn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you tried it out for sure.
Ooh,
I mean,
me too.
I
was
know
not
for a
sure
fact
how that was gonna go.
Well, I know for a fact Andy was looking forward to trying that out.
Ooh, yeah.
So
I've been vaping, so I've been only taking gummies for like forever. I haven't vaped in a super long time.
yeah.
it's different, that's for sure. Maybe another one before we hit the road later on. But yeah, I think one should do for now. The thing that's nice with these is that I wouldn't equate it to dabbing at all. I wouldn't equate it to like it's not as light as just hitting a vape pen out of a stick one time, but it's not nearly as harsh or as strong as hitting like a dab, like straight up.
Right.
But what I've found is that whenever you smoke concentrates, the type of buzz is much cleaner in terms of like the onset is quicker. It's a little bit more rapid, but at the same time, like not rapid, but more, it hits you harder at the end of the day. But it's consistent and it doesn't like fluctuate as much and doesn't have as much of a crash as flower does.
Yeah. Do you think it lasts as long? I don't know if that depends.
It really depends on the person. I think it does personally, for myself. But I really do think it depends on tolerance. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Andy will.
Yeah, I guess we will.
All right,
I'll let you know.
Yeah, good thing there's a timer going. So while we're at it, I do think we should get into the Who Would Win of the Week.
Whew, okay.
Yeah. And this week's Who Would Win of the Week is Willy Wonka versus Steve-O.
You know what we didn't decide is if we were going to go was which Willy Wonka we were going to go with. Are we going OG,
Willy Wonka,
Johnny Depp, or
we're going OG,
or Timmy Chalamet?
We're going. Is that OG Timmy Chalamet?
No, that's Gene Wilder.
Oh, I don't fucking know.
Timothy Chalamet is like
I don't know who that is.
He like starred in Dune. He's like a very popular young actor these days.
Yeah,
but
that's the newest one then.
Yeah, he's going to be. They're doing like a prequel to Willy Wonka's story.
Oh, so it's not even out yet.
No.
Oh, so
we're going with Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka.
Gene Wilder, original Willy Wonka.
And that guy's got some fire.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of an angry
I'll say
dude.
right off the top, and then Emily kind of brought this up before the show. Like, I think in general, Willy Wonka is scary. Like, he's a scary guy.
That movie terrified me as a kid.
Yeah, he's a very, he's very peculiar.
He's a different kind of crazy, and crazy is always entertaining, but has that X factor where it's just a wild card. You have no fucking clue what he's about to pop off and do next. And on top of that, the man's got resources, and he's got henchmen.
Yeah.
But perhaps that's a detriment, because if we're talking one-on-one, mano-a-mano, Willy Wonka's so used to putting his feet up all the time and, having these other guys do the work for him.
But let me compare them in two ways, because once that came up, I was about to say this is advantage Steve-O, but I actually think that they both deal with this in the same boat. Like, one thing that's always fascinated me about Jackass, and I feel like the guys have done interviews about it before, but the one reason that I could never contend on Jackass, and it's not because I wouldn't want to do the skits, it's because of what goes on in between the skits. Like, how are you not constantly anxious that somebody's going to come up to you and just tase you from behind when you're taking a nap, or you know what I mean? Like,
I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Throw you in. Like, I couldn't do it, and that is something that those guys have just become content with. Like, they can be sleeping in their own bed, and somebody will walk into their room and start shooting Roman candles at them. Like, and nothing is off limits to those guys, and they have to be ready at all times. And not necessarily be ready, but be okay with it when it happens. Because they'll get mad. So there's so much unpredictability in their lives, which is an advantage when you're talking about fighting somebody, probably especially somebody as odd as Willy Wonka. But I think that Willy Wonka probably deals with a lot of that as well, because Oompa Loompas, as we know, are little shitheads. And I think Willy Wonka has a good grasp on them and can not control them, but they respect him in a sense. But there's no way that just because there's not kids in the factory that Oompa Loompas aren't up to no good all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we compared Oompa Loompas to Sour Patch Kids. We did that as a Who Would Win of the Week. I think they're very Sour Patch Kid-esque, but without the sweetness, right? Like, they do stuff, and then they go back to being normal, but they're not apologizing for the stuff that they do.
Right.
It's Steve-O and Willy Wonka live very similar lives.
So you're making me flip-flop now, because at first I was going to go Willy Wonka on this, just because he's batshit crazy, he's got the resources, he could pull out some shit that you wouldn't be expecting, but when you lay it out like that, the guys from Jackass especially, they've taken some damage. I mean, you know that they can really take their pain tolerance is up there.
It's unbelievable.
I feel like the two of them at it would be like watching like Homer Simpson or Rocky in a boxing match where they just keep getting hit and nothing happens to them, you know?
Right.
Versus like, 'cause I think this one really comes down to not who can lay out more damage, but who can actually take damage. And I think that Steve-O can, and I don't think Willy Wonka
You know
can.
what, though?
Yeah.
I think that Willy Wonka has enough of a screw loose where he's not far off. And the other thing about Willy Wonka is not only is his life unpredictable, but he's unpredictable. I don't know if you're a TikTok guy. I know Andrew's not much of a TikTok guy, but I hope Emily gets this reference. You know those TikToks that are like never let anybody see what's coming? Do you know what I'm talking about? And they just do like crazy shit. Have you ever seen this like trend?
I don't think
It's
so.
it's
I don't
very
have a TikTok,
yeah
but-
it's very dumb, but it'll be like, you know, people being like, never let them know like what your next move is, and they'll just do like crazy stuff. Like they'll go to get out their driver's side door, and then they'll like climb through their trunk and get out their trunk and put down a skateboard and like act like they're about to jump on it, and then like drop down and start doing push. You know what I mean? Like just dumb shit like that. That's how Willy Wonka operates. He never wants anybody to know what his next move is. He probably doesn't even know what his next move is. He is as unpredictable as the life that he lives in. Now,
But like
that
you
ties
said,
into Steve-O being comfortable in a situation.
Yeah, those jackass
that
guys,
is
they live in
So
unpredictability.
I kind of talked myself into. Yeah, I kind of
Well,
swindled
I
myself.
think no matter what point you make about Willy Wonka, you will find a way to round it back to Steve-O, because you said you use the term crazy and entertaining when describing Willy Wonka, but who is more crazy and entertaining than Steve-O?
Steve-O.
I don't think
And
anybody.
like Steve-O has
Spot on.
pain tolerance is his pain like he has done some ridiculous stuff. Like have you ever seen honestly, you want to know why Steve-O gets the win? Have you ever seen the Jackass clip where he fucking by himself puts that giant ass hook through his mouth and jumps in the
Jackass 2.
ocean?
Mm-hmm.
Like what the fuck?
That's
That had
crazy.
to be
He almost lost his foot.
because of that.
Yeah, he's said it on his podcast like a bunch about that stunt in particular, like because in the movie there's this shark coming up to him and he kicks it.
Oh
and
yeah, he does
diverts
kick it.
They were out in the middle of the ocean. They had no plan for what would happen if he got bit.
Of course they didn't.
They just got lucky.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's what I mean. Like how?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of on board with how does Steve-O lose?
And the thing is, Emily and I were talking about Steve-O earlier, and she said, "What did you say? All the Jackass guys have been on record saying like, we don't know how to fight, but we can take a lot of pain," and that's what I think proved your point exactly.
Okay, so then to that point though, yeah, they can take a lot of pain, but one thing that Willy Wonka doesn't lack is energy. Okay. So I guess it could come down to how much pain can Steve-O take, because does Willy Wonka ever run out of the juice to keep feeding Steve-O?
And can Steve-O lay down any damage in the first place?
I mean, I think he could do a little something.
Now I've seen him play tetherball with a bee's nest, and he didn't make a ton of contact. I don't know.
I have to think this one over real quick.
Yeah. Make sure. Yeah, get what you need in you and think this one over. And we'll go a long way around the table. We'll let you vote last.
All right.
Okay.
I could do this.
That's worse.
Oh, I could do that.
Yeah, do that.
Oh, okay. I lost my train of thought now.
Going in a circle.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Steve-O, Willy Wonka. I'm gonna pick Steve-O. I just think that but I don't know how he necessarily defeats Willy Wonka. But I would assume that Willy Wonka is a guy who has never been punched in the face.
Yeah.
So I think that's what'll lock. I don't. Will Steve-O land a lot of violent shots? Maybe not. But will it take a lot of violent shots? Also, probably not. So I'm gonna go with Steve-O here, based off of unpredictability. I think Willy Wonka is a good match. Like would win a lot of fights. I think that his level of unpredictableness would be something that a lot of people would struggle with. But to Steve-O, nothing would make a difference. Nothing would faze him.
Yeah, I gotta go with Steve-O too. I mean, Willy Wonka's crazy, I think, but nobody out crazy Steve-O.
Yeah. I gotta agree. I'm going with Steve-O on this one, and man, I could only imagine the pay-per-view ticket on this. Like, I would watch that on replay. I mean, that is like the matchup, man.
Yeah.
But I would definitely, I could just see Steve-O pulling out at the end of the day and not being fazed by anything Willy Wonka has to throw at him, and then it'll just wear him down eventually. And I just see Willy Wonka as being a little bitch when it actually comes to taking damage. You know, I just don't see it taking too much to like take him down in a sense.
Yeah, I'm on that.
Once you actually get to him, you know, I feel like that would be the tricky part.
Yeah. So we're call that a clean-o sweep, 3-0 Steve-O.
Very
Vote
nice.
on that on Friday on our Instagram. Who would win the week? Steve-O versus Willy Wonka. All right. So back to where we were before. My question is, and you don't have to, get into this if you don't want to, but I'm curious, as things start to progress, what does Buffalo Buds, what is, your next step? Where do you see it going? What do you want to do? Or does it all depend on what you're able to do?
Yeah, what we're able to do definitely dictates a lot of where we're going to go next. I am not in the cowboy mindset to just go off and start opening up like sticker shops and things that just still, to actually fill it with weed quite yet. That is obviously going to be the plan down the road. I'd love to be able to have flower in our containers and to sell true Buffalo Buds grown in Buffalo, of course, not imported in from California or wherever else. But the next step is definitely creating a line of Delta 9 products. The real deal, the thing that people really are looking for in terms of, like, I'm not going to ever get rid of the Delta 8 line just because Delta 8 I've found has such a solid place in the market. There are so many people that Delta 9 is just too strong for them. They have no need to go to something stronger. So if that's the case, then the milder option definitely needs to be there, especially for people that have more anxiety, paranoia, that kind of thing. But
it's my whole life.
and it helps with that. And so does this, but in moderation.
Yeah.
So I think the next line for us is going to be creating a Delta 9 line of gummies. We also are going to have some rolling papers coming in soon, just as kind of like a complement to what's going on in the industry right now. I'm not really looking to sell joints, but at the same time, if people want to buy local flour and buy with local and fill local papers with it, then that's a different story. But from there, I'm really just looking to see how this market progresses. As we were talking about before, everyone's kind of concerned about the bigger players like the McDonald's, KFC coming into the weed market, but what I'm seeing happen right now is the small guys just kind of flooding each other out with the saturation. I mean, every person that ever made a batch of brownies or put a pot plant into the ground is opening up their own company, and I am all about the like exploration and like trying to make your own and everything else, but at the same time, this would be the wrong time to do it, in my opinion, only because of this is almost a time where I'm looking at how to restructure, just because of how many people are entering into the same and doing the same thing, right? And so it's kind of like, where do you provide value if 20 to 50 to 100 other companies are producing the same face brand product but at a cheaper cost, or something else? Because really what it comes down to is that what I'm looking at doing is raising the quality of the process, the products, and the milligram, like, so making products stronger, making them more consistent, making them like a larger packaging, things like that. But from there, I don't really want to spread it too thin either. I mean, there's just so much out there right now.
Yeah.
That I want to find something new that is going to actually provide benefit to the everyday consumer and not just be a race to the bottom to say, hey, I know those are cheaper, but these are better because X, Y, and Z. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I want it to be that much more revolutionary for it not to need an explanation.
Yeah.
Frankly.
And I think one of the coolest parts about it, and again, like, I'm not your clientele, I'm not your targeted consumer, but at the same time, being somebody, and I think we've talked about this a bunch on the show. I sound a little echoey. We as people that live in Buffalo, that live in Western New York, are a very like Buffalo-centric community, right? Like, we love our community, and that's why I thought it was so cool to hear that, you know, all of these products that Buffalo Buds is selling right now are being made here in Buffalo by, you know, people that are from Buffalo and being sold, you know, to the highest quality for the people in Buffalo. And I don't think that's something you can take for granted, right? It's, you know, I think it's really important that people have that option. You're right that some people probably are going to try to go with the cheaper route and not necessarily care where it's from, what's in it, you know, just because they want it and it's less expensive, that's what they'll pick. But I think there's a lot of people that are listening to this right now that are like, you know, and probably people that have never used Delta 8 or Delta 9 or haven't in years, or, you know, never thought they'd see themselves using it, are listening to this like, like Buffalo Buds, you know, I know what's in it, I know where it's made, you know, I'm allowed to use it. It's, you know, you talked about it, right? People use it to sleep, anxiety, you know, the million different things. People can Google that on their own, right? Mm-hmm. But give people an opportunity to come try this, and I don't think they'd be disappointed.
No, and I know that, you know, the effectiveness of it kind of speaks for itself. We haven't had to do any... Yeah. There we go. Come on. Yeah. I saw the other half of that gummy disappear, too.
Yeah. Well, because you got to take the gummy and then... You said it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Andrew's just following orders.
There we go. As prescribed.
Yep.
You know... One of my favorite, you reminded me of I guess an anecdote in a sense, like a testimonial. Like, I had a friend whose grandmother unfortunately fell and broke part of her collarbone, but because of the recovery, she couldn't leave her house. So it affected her more in like a social aspect, where she couldn't go play bridge and bingo or whatever, just be part of her normal social aspect, right? And she was 91 or 93 years old at the time. And so she got her surgery, and her doctor said, you know, if you can, try cannabis as well, because a lot of the other drugs, opiates, whatever else, were a little bit more detrimental in a sense. So my friend came to me and she asked for that. This is when we just started doing the Buffalo Buds, and I actually gave her the normal, the lighter ones. And I told her, I was like, you know, she's 90-something years old. Give her half of one gummy, maybe even a quarter of one. Wait a couple hours, like upwards of 4 hours, and then give her more, whatever else. She texts me. She's like, Grandma ate 2. We'll see where it goes. I'm like, holy shit. God. And
that's one of the greatest texts of all time.
Right, exactly. Well, her grandma loved them, and they worked really well for her. I saw her about 2 weeks later, and I asked her how her grandma was doing, and she was like, oh, last time I went over there was 2 days ago, and she was outside washing her windows.
Yeah.
And she said that she's gone back to bingo and done all these other things, so it was awesome to see that aspect kind of come back to her just from that relief, you know? And that's part of what, like, is for me the most encouraging and makes it all worth it in a sense, you know? I mean, I believe in the products that we carry, and I know how effective it is for the people that need relief, and that makes up for and there's nothing wrong with recreational use at all, you know what I mean? But that so greatly outweighs the just recreational, like just having fun, getting high, and whatever else, which is still real, like therapy in itself, you know?
Yeah.
You're still unwinding from the day or your stresses and everything else. So just knowing how much it helps people, it's something that we're definitely going to be continuing to carry, and if anything, just expanding what we offer.
Andy? Well, I think it's awesome. I think Andy's good on questions. But
Ooh.
Yeah, so we'll wrap it up here. But I'm gonna say it again, and I want you to say where you can find this stuff, different stores, or if I don't know if people are able to order it, what the deal is with it. But where they can find you, where they can follow Buffalo Buds as a company.
Yeah, I mean, you can follow us on Instagram. We have a very small presence because I'm not very. I don't spend a lot of time online. I'm in need of help, so if anybody wants to dedicate some time in either trading gummies or something for some social media activity, I would love to start that conversation. Just DM us at buffalobuds.life.
Yeah, just wait. Yeah.
Yeah, especially TikTok. I mean, honestly, like for people that are out there that have or create TikTok items in general, I can't tell you, like, you can, as a company, you can go and hire like a marketing company and they're like, oh, we'll charge you $3,000 to $5,000 a month and you'll have 12 Instagram posts and 1 YouTube video or whatever it is, right? You can ask any of those companies, hey, do you do TikTok? 0 do it, actually. So it's really interesting to me that is like a primarily younger clientele that produces that, but hasn't really like monetized the marketing company around it. Anyways, for back to Buffalo Buds, because we're not high or anything.
I'm keeping you guys on track. Hey,
right.
We're rolling here. Yeah.
Sativa Remedy here in Tonawanda is our #1 retailer. You can also find us at Headspace and a number of other shops within the Buffalo region. We're also, if you're closer to Rochester or Batavia, we're also at Glassroots out in Batavia. Otherwise, you can order us online at Sativa Remedy's website, actually. We have a website that will be going live, but in the meantime, Sativa Remedy is carrying us in that sense, too, and they do a great job. They have expedited shipping on all their orders, so typically within 3 to 5 days, people receive their orders.
Awesome. And seriously, whether you guys, have never used it in your life, or your grandma wants to try it, because she had shoulder surgery, or you're somebody who, exactly you said, likes to get home and hang out and unwind from the day and just get a little high, try Buffalo Buds. Made in Buffalo, sold in Buffalo. I mean, you can't beat it. You know what's in it. It's the real deal. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. This is a great time.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for sampling the product, Andy.
Yeah, anytime, fellas. You give me a call. Holy shit.
All right.
Boy, this stuff is effective. God
Looking
damn.
back.
Yeah, Andrew's gonna go watch the other guys now.
Right.
The rest
I'm
of
gonna
that
go watch a Disney Channel original
Oh,
movie.
there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Fantasia or something. Really,
Oh, Jesus
like,
Christ.
Yeah. Listen, I'll be getting a call from Andrew in 2 hours. Like, man, I'm still in the studio. I can't stop.
I know.
about to say,
I'm watching My Date with the President's Daughter.
Andy, I'm not coming to pick you up. Just
I'm
hang
not
out.
going anywhere.
Yeah, you hang out, watch a movie. Thank you again, Buffalo Buds. Check it out, Andy. I love you.
I love you too. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.